Oh, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Jorge's Isolation Podcast. I'm glad everybody is joining us once again, all 5 to 6 of you that listen and watch weekly, or, if I don't record over a few months, then you come back and you're still there. Thank you for watching and being there today. I have a wonderful guest. It's one of my dearest friends. We've shared some gritty experiences together through grad school and some weird experiences. We've cried. I think we've laughed. We've seen it all. And this is my dear friend Nic Marrone.
Honored to be here. Hi, Jorge. Thank you.
How you doing?
I'm good. We certainly have been through it together, but yes, I'm very good. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, no, it's been crazy. I actually, the last episode, there was a friend of mine, Rick Midelis. He is from my undergrad. He was we did theater together back in South Texas, and he got into stage managing, and he literally just wrapped a show where he stage managed a show that Courtney Vincent was in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a small world.
Small world. And I was like, man, and I messaged Courtney. I was like, we've been through it. I pulled you off from trying to murder Rafi.
Yeah. Some interesting art classes for sure. Holy cow, man. Wrestling. Yeah.
How crazy was the grad school experience where we were doing it's hard to explain to the lay person.
Yes.
What we did.
Yeah. And actually, I think that might be a good jumping in point with all of this. Like what we did, I think, to sum up in grad school and acting was really stepping into the unknown and being courageous and brave and asking questions and exploring and expressing and talking and feeling. And all of that skill set is kind of what translates into the death care work. So we were living, we were alive.
We were alive.
For sure.
No, definitely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And also for those of you watching or listening, Nic is a death doula. Which is, an amazing thing we're going to get into in just a moment. But what have you been doing since we graduated, man?
Golly, well, since we graduated, I did this tour that shall not be named, and it was one of the best acting experiences of my life, but one of the worst human experiences of my life. And so that was kind of they say life is what derails you from what you think you're doing, but that kind of shifted my path a whole different way. Had an incredible building fire that shifted my path a whole other way. That was quite the experience. I call that death without death. That was an experience where I had everyone alive in my circle checking in on me to see if I was okay. It was a massive traumatic and supportive experience. And then after that,
just I'm pausing you there just to let everyone else know what you're talking about. Was that your apartment, you and a few of our close friends, actually very close friends, Velson, Brennan, who else was your roommate?
We had Jake McCready, but Jeff was in there at one point too.
Jeff, so your apartment building caught on fire, and you weren't able to get in there to your apartment for like what, a week, 2 weeks?
Initially, no, it was like happened November, got in maybe February, but it's been 4 years. But now I'm back to that space, which is that's what I've been up to. It's a whole strange experience to be full circle back.
And it was just a devastating fire, which is awful. I remember that whole time. So continue.
Well, that was a life-changing experience in itself, and a lot just opened up, when you got nothing, literally. I mean, just the clothes on your back, and then a pandemic, that happened. My grandma was my first great death. That's something that's going to come up that we'll talk about. But there was a lot in these past 4 years that have just been like totally transformative for me. So I feel like I finally turned a corner and am on my feet and holding all of that weight with some pride and steady feet. I don't know.
Yeah. What was it about the tour? Or you said that it was a great acting experience, but as a human experience, what was it?
So the work was brilliant. It was really intricate, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual work. It was hard. It was like the only thing that I thought topped grad school. I was like, whoa, that was a trial run. The humans, a part of it, the cast, the ill-spirited. I mean, just negative and mean and bad timing and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
having like an inflated head with nothing to back it up and being crammed in a bus with these people and having so much life on top of each other. I mean, the second we got back into the city and the bus let out, it was like cockroaches, lights on. We were out of each other's lives.
That's a
But
shame.
yeah, to sum it all up, I realized I did not like acting enough to do that ever again. And that opened up a whole bunch of other questions. What is it
Yeah.
that I do really love about acting? And how do
Yeah.
I incorporate that in my life? And that's where like the spiritual essence of reading people in emotional space and stillness and power and all of that plays just into everything else I do now.
Really.
Yeah.
So then from there, you said you packed up and everyone went their separate way from that tour. Okay, I'm trying to go back because we hadn't really stayed in touch as well as we should have. But I
Mhm.
think you were on your journey. You're doing your thing. I was having kids and
Yeah.
getting fatter.
Tell
And
me more.
it's just one of those things where life kind of like, I think it's just our friendship is one of those friendships where we can not talk for several months to a year and still pick up where we left off. But what was happening from that point, because it's very, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I have contemplated how much I love acting just because this business can wear on a person's psyche. It can be depressing. It can just, you know, um, for instance, I had an audition experience back in, I think it was the winter of 2014. Yeah, it was the winter of 2014. And I'll always remember this because this was for an untitled, I guess, fruit bar, kind of like a Nutri-Grain sort of. I
Yeah.
don't know. That's what I associated with. And the premise of that was to come. The breakdown said, "Hey, you need to be camera ready and you need to show up, ready to shoot." Because they might use some of the stuff that they get from the audition for the actual commercial, just because whatever. And they purposely left out details of what they were going to talk about. I get there, and it's one of those auditions where if you ever audition for commercials, you're in and out, in and out.
Yeah.
It's just like a 30-second thing. Bye. It's
Yeah.
just painless. You go off and get ice cream or whatever you're done. You're done. And I get there and I'm waiting, and my appointment was like at 1, and it's like 1:30 now. Now it's almost 2. Now it's 2:30, and I finally get called in, and they're taking like 10-15 minutes each person. I'm like, what the heck is going on in there? And I go in there and they talk about, okay, go to makeup. There's some makeup table. They're just powdering because I always shiny. So just they powder me up. This thing is lit, like they're ready to shoot.
Yeah.
They have like an actual camera instead of one of those little camcorders. And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. And finally I'm ready. I'm in front of the camera. So what's the premise? And with commercials, they have the sides on the board, like a little,
Yeah.
like if you're doing Pictionary or whatever, one of those big drawing boards. And they said, hey, this is about people being bullied for being overweight. And I'm like, what? And I think I've told this story before in the podcast, but like, just long story short, it's like they had me read on the board a fat joke. I could choose a fat joke. Like, it's like, you know what? You're so fat, your belt size is equator. Or, you're so fat, your blood type is gravy. You know what I mean? It's just those things. And they wanted me to look at the board, get the joke, poop and scoop, scoop and poop, or whatever, just
Yes.
there, and look directly into the camera. And then they said, hey, when you said those jokes, how did that make you feel? And I said, this is the dumbest thing. Like they're not even funny. They're not even clever jokes. They're
Yeah.
stupid, but they still hurt and they sting to a point where, it's still, I can still feel it. I mean, I haven't been bullied, since I was little by my cousins.
Mhm.
And they said, well, were you ever bullied? I was like, yeah. And I said that I was bullied by my cousins when I was little for being a little chubby. And they said, well, how did that make you feel? I was like, you know what? They can say stupid jokes like that. And I can feel like this big giant balloon. And those little jokes can be just as small as a pin. They're so much
Yeah.
smaller than the balloon. But as soon as that little tiny pin punctures the balloon, all the air goes out of me. And I almost I started crying a little bit there. And I was like, why is this happening? And they wanted real emotional response. That's why they didn't tell me anything. And I leave that commercial audition, and I walk home, and this is the Friday before the industry holiday. So I would not hear anything for about 2.5, 3 weeks,
Yeah.
whether I booked it or not. And it just ruined my whole weekend because I just kept thinking about this stuff. And that's kind of like a trend that I think about with this industry, is that I'm only going to be seen for certain things if I don't change my appearance, which, like you hear about this a lot with the ladies, where, you need to be hot, or you need to be, the cute blonde, or whatever it is. But, the dudes, we still have to deal with that to a certain extent on our end, where I can go in for a breakdown. There's a breakdown and it'll say, slightly balding, Latino, father of 2, loves his family, ex-alcoholic. I was like, okay, there I am, right? But ex-military, womp womp womp. When they hear ex-military, they want a Navy SEAL looking dude who's still ripped, who could be a possible Navy SEAL at the moment. So there's like certain aspects of this industry where it's like that, where it's more like the body image issues, where it's like, oh, I'm self-conscious. I know I'm never going to get some parts that I could be good for, but I will never know. Or it's one of those things where I can work and work and work, but it's still never good enough for the industry.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that wears on me. And I'm sorry I turned this about me, but it's like that's what I had in mind. So I wonder if like it's one of those things where for you, it's no matter what you did, like you could do a tour, you can get a lead in something, but it's still never good enough. They still, you still wouldn't be seen for a lead in a series reg, or, or in a TV show. Like, what is it? And some kid out of Juilliard can pop in and just get the lead of a movie and then become, a steady working actor.
Yeah. Or some producer's niece or nephew,
yes.
Whatever. That kind of thing. Yeah. I think
that's part of the industry that annoys me.
Yeah. Well, I think the term that comes up for me that kind of really was my breaking point is the idea of emotional violence. It's like there's one person that goes in and exposes their heart and gets the feedback and gets the job. But that machine is inviting vulnerable, beautiful, sensitive artists with real, amazing, authentic stories.
Mm-hmm.
But there you go, right? You don't look like that classic Hollywood thing. Therefore, they're cutting into you and leaving you high and dry. And it just, for me, it just jostles up so much that, to go to that place, to go to somewhere beautiful and really open up and have somebody across the table say some stupid, junk to you, or, sexually harass you. That was part of my journey too. After my first walk-in after our agent callbacks was a sexual harassment trap. I was just like, ugh, again, it's like, I don't love acting enough for this.
And that was before the Me Too sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I guess so, right? That was
right before.
Mm-hmm. But then you go into the idea of, well, I need to make my own art for people that look and move and feel like me. And yes, that's a thing, but that's a tremendous cost to energy, resources, talent, time. It's just
and
there's
who's
no
going to see
this machine right now that is really problematic for me.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is that they say, well, you can be mad about not being seen, or if you want to see the stories that you want to see, you have to create it. Well, then who's going to see it? Because you can create something, you can go and shoot something or write something, but then who's going to move it forward? It's just, unless you already know somebody.
Yeah,
it's still like a trap. I don't know. It's frustrating. It's a never-ending.
Yeah,
cycle.
And it's a totally different job to be an interpretive artist versus a creative artist. You know what I mean? Or generative artist, that kind of thing too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then from there, you started thinking, I guess, reassessing acting. Where did you go from there?
From there, I went into I kind of did everything but acting. I worked on 420 the musical. That was great. That was a lot of fun to put on, like, producer hat, director hat, writer hat.
Yeah.
Make props hat, do anything needed to happen, to get the job done hat. And it was a lot of fun. I had a great time working with that artistic team. I really felt like well, talk about this, I felt like I found my people, and
Yeah.
people that I loved to work with and create with our own stuff, whether it was going to be seen or not. And
Yeah.
something I did really love about our audition rooms, and this was, Laura Lonsky was a big producer on that, and Teresa Sagan in there too. But Laura Lonsky was a producer of the first one, but she is this brilliant genius. She used to be like corporate, legal, lawyery, financial world, but she's this creative musician genius. But in her auditions, she let people shine. She wasn't so worried
Yeah.
about a high note as she was your personality. So it
Yeah.
just brought out so much juicy stuff that we kept
Uh-huh.
continuing that tradition. We would do it was in this old the rock and roll building down on like 38th and 8th or something like that. But we would have like campfire auditions, and everybody came in and everybody told a story about themselves, or everybody talked about something, and then people got up and sang a little song, and then people got up and read a little something. But by the end of it, people are exchanging names and contacts, and everybody's just feeling a lot of love. And we
Yeah.
got a lot of feedback that we're just grateful that, there was a soft place to land for artists, and
Yeah.
yeah, people that were looking to support us in other ways outside of the acting, because we had created something loving in the room, which I think is really, I guess the question is, how do you get to that point where you're creating something that is loving and feels good to you and to give to people, and that people receive well?
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's a unique thing that you talk about, that the campfire auditions. It's just
Yeah.
how how different is that?
Yeah, it was wild. One time we had like it was like five girls, and four of their middle names were named Anna, and the girl, the one who wasn't named Anna, like her name was an African name that meant Anna. If you
Oh,
loosely
really?
translated, it was like this weird. Yeah, there was so much magic that happened in those rooms, and I think that's another part of this too. When you open up the idea of creativity and that energy and that essence and that magic, I think it really comes through, which again is
Yeah.
kind of my problem with how it's running now. It's so get in the door, do what we need you to do, and get out the door, and you're not going to hear from us at all.
It's not
It's,
even that anymore. It's self-tape.
hmm? Oh
It's
yeah,
self-tape now.
into the void.
It's yeah. So for the
Sometimes.
longest time, yeah. Well, I mean, I've often wondered when I was in Texas if casting ever saw my tapes,
Yeah.
because I was in a different region. And talk about going into the void. I remember I did this one audition, and it was for a movie, and I did the audition. It was just a weird scene, the way they have it cut, where I was running through like a hospital, like an emergency room, then up a flight of stairs and blah blah blah, and I had to do that on a tape. So it was awkward. And then a week later, they said they stopped casting, and I thought it was because of COVID. This was like in July, and
Yeah.
in July in Texas is when we got our huge spike. So I thought, oh no, they shut it down because of COVID. Well, I was talking to my friend who is a casting director in LA about how I just catching up, and I said, hey, so how's business? She's like, oh, it's been really busy. How about you? And I said, well, I auditioned for this one movie, and I mean, they shut it down for COVID. I was sure that it was because of COVID. And she's like, wait, which movie? And I said which movie it was. She's like, wait, that's my movie. I didn't see your tape. And I was like, well, because LA and New York still holds the main casting, and sometimes regional
Yeah.
casting doesn't get it through to the LA and New York. And I realized, man, this is a bigger uphill battle being in the regional area. So that's one of those things where I realized a lot of my tapes might have not have gone
Yeah.
past
Right into
anything.
the weed whacker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Even with a resume, it just, who knows? You know? So yeah. So now let's so where are we at? You did 420 the musical. What year was this about? 16, 15?
I think so. I think it was 2016,
Yeah.
somewhere around that time. And we did that all the way through. We did a few years of that and a few iterations, and some of them were smashed and some of them weren't. It was quite the journey. But after
Yeah.
that, yeah, I picked up film. That was, I think, film is far more for me enjoyable and
Yeah.
scarier and
Yeah.
honest
Yeah.
in terms of how I create it, versus theater. But I have dabbled in that, and I still enjoy going to those classes and stuff like that. I definitely
Yeah.
fool around.
Do you
Hmm.
still act? Are you still
I
trying
would
to?
for people. I would for people in projects that I love. Absolutely. There's a part of me that doesn't, I just don't care to go into those rooms again right now. If it's people I know and love and support, yeah, I'd love to create and share. But
Yeah.
right now, no. Mm-mm.
I remember Rose and I were watching, it was a Curious Incident of the Dog at
Yeah.
Night. And I was like, why isn't Nick in this?
Yeah, that's a good one. That is some of
It's just your energy would be so great for that. Or if you were a little older, Gentleman's Guide,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I
you
do
would
like that one too.
crush that. There's a
Yeah.
few shows where I was just like thinking to myself, man, I would love to see you in this.
Namaste.
Just to feel,
I
yeah,
I think I'm gonna come back around. I think I'm gonna be like 50 going on 60, and well, maybe a little earlier too. But to walk into those rooms with a little more experience and be as kooky and old as I will be, I think that is
yeah,
where I'm gonna have a lot of fun playing those
yeah,
characters that I don't get to play right now because I look a little ingenuic or young or
yeah.
whatever. Being a kooky old man, that I think is where I'm gonna enjoy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
was it Beverly Leslie or is it the was it
Oh
Leslie
yeah.
Jordan? Yeah. From
Yeah, that's what I'm
what's the
talking about
name
though.
from Will and
Iconic.
Grace? What's the character Beverly I can't remember, but it's Leslie Jordan, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think his name is Beverly Leslie in that. I'm not
Yeah,
sure though.
Beverly something.
Yeah.
He's hilarious. Or like a Martin Short type.
Yeah, just something goofy and absurd,
Yeah.
and that's what I always liked to do too. My art was not, I never wanted to do those Romeo and Juliet things. I always wanted to do something twisted and on its head and kooky
Yes.
and weird. And, it was frustrating to going back to these acting rooms, talking about people saying, no, Nick, just be yourself. And my normal self is like, hey, what's up? La, la,
Yeah.
la, la, just all over. Yeah.
Or the dance man
It's
Samus
like
Sam.
you don't want to see that. I know you don't want to see that. So what the hell am I supposed to be? So I don't know. I'm
You know,
excited for. I feel like I have no pressures on acting anymore now that I've just kind of taken ownership of. Well, I'm only going to do it for me and people I love, and that I think will create some beautiful art eventually.
did you have agents or manager or any reps?
Yeah, I worked with this one guy that was great. We got right after school, and he understood that I was kooky and weird. And
That's good.
he would send me to a lot of commercial rooms where, again, yeah, you have to walk into the unknown and just totally, but hope you hit a
Yeah.
baseball, or, hit the home run. But I liked that. I liked that for a long while, and it was fun to learn by immersion how to conquer those rooms and
Yeah.
voiceover rooms too. He sent me for a lot of voiceovers, and once I started booking those jobs, it was like, oh, I don't know, it was cool to
Voiceover
get
is
to the
fun.
swing of things. Yeah, voiceover is a
Yeah.
lot of fun actually.
I did one.
Yeah.
I did
What did
one.
you get to do?
It was for, I can't remember, it was for a medicine. And my whole line was saying, enough, enough,
That's it.
enough. Like 20 times.
Yeah.
Enough.
Okay, so I swear to God, I had to do one that it was just bot. I just had to say
Really?
bot as many times and over in different ways. Bot 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 bot. It was like 3 minutes of that. Just go in the room and
Really?
knock it out. Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's awesome.
Enough.
Did you get to ever go to some of those what was it? There's a place on Fifth Ave. Was it Sound Lounge?
Oh,
Uh
the really gorgeous place with all the stuff on the walls and
yes, and it has like a
think so.
snack bar as you walk in.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I had some good auditions there, but one in particular was awful. It's almost, it was like a movie where
Yeah.
one of the most racist things that could ever happen happened there. Where I was reading for like it was, I think it was for a GTA Grand Theft Auto type of game,
Yeah.
and so obviously they wanted some cholos, some Mexican
Yeah.
gangsters, and so I was like, hey, whatever, fool, and I'm just doing my thing. But the casting director's like, hey, we want it more like, hey, whatever, fool. He was really, really
Laying into it.
yeah. And I was like, no, man, I'm not gonna do that. That's
Yeah.
whack. But on a lighter note, in that same office when I was waiting, Carla Gugino,
Who was that?
Carla Gugino, she's been in Sin City. She was in The Haunting of Hill House, that series on Netflix.
Okay, I might recognize her face for sure.
You'll recognize her if you saw her. She was in there doing some voice stuff, and
Yeah.
it's just like a celebrity crush. So we got
Yeah,
to make
yeah, yeah.
contact.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
magical
yeah,
times at Sound
yeah.
Lounge.
Rosa was going to be a single mom, but luckily we didn't get to talk long enough.
Luckily.
Luckily for Rosa, but yeah. So you did have reps then,
Hmm.
and did you just say I don't want to work? I'm just going to take a break and just trying to find myself,
I
or do
think
you
it
just
was
want
a
to
mutual,
work professionally, or
like with my manager.
yeah,
Yeah, I think there was just a mutual understanding. You know, my life, especially with the pandemic, I really took advantage of the transformation and change that was to happen in that space, you know,
yeah,
of whatever. So I feel like part of adjusting back to this pre-pandemic pace and reclaiming my own time and making sure that I'm getting everything that I need to for my personal life done and my personal satisfaction done.
mhm,
There's just not as much room. I just don't quite have the bandwidth to hop on a camera, and especially if I'm not interested in the product or have to
yeah,
talk about the internet, like I
yeah,
can't do it. You know, I
yeah.
can't bring myself to do it. Like if it's something I enjoy, of course I'll submit for him. So there's just like a mutual space being given. But yeah, he does holler still. And yeah, if I like it, I'll do it.
You'll do
So
it. Yeah,
yeah,
no,
I'm a
that's
little
good.
stubborn.
I mean, I get it. I totally get it. I think I started saying no a little bit more recently, just because I didn't want to get myself pigeonholed into certain things, which I think I have with certain
Yeah.
casting offices. I think they only see me as um the one line guy or a co-star guy, and at this point I can't be doing those anymore.
Yeah.
It's got to be a little bigger. There's got to be a little bit more meat in
Yeah.
the project, because I've busted my ass for 8 years, and yeah, I've done enough. And at some point, you want to act. And I did a play reading a couple
Yeah.
days ago, and that's the most text I've had in years. Years, a whole play, like working on a whole play. And I told one of my friends that was doing the reading with me that, this is the most most acting I've done in years. He's like, well, you do mainly TV. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Where I'm only getting a couple scenes
Yeah.
or just little scenes. And you got to remind yourself that you are an actor. And sometimes I don't feel like I'm an actor. I'm just, a fill-in guy.
Yeah. Little imposter syndrome sneaking in there.
Bad. Lately, it's
Yeah.
been bad. I think this past year's been bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going through, I guess, my creative, phase as well, where I need to transition to something different.
You're about to, well, you know, Alfie was one person that told me if you're about to break down, you're about to break through. You know, it's once you get to that point that you're like, this isn't working, I can't, that, you know, something gives, and you usually
Yeah.
level up with it.
And she
Mhm.
leveled up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Alfie leveled up.
Yeah, but her work was always good. She did always do
Always.
real
They
good
did her
work.
dirty though in grad school a bunch of
Oh, for
times.
sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so crazy to think that. And um, I mean, we all were. It was a weird experience, grad school.
Mhm.
It really and truly was, and I think that broke down a lot of people mentally. I don't know about you, but leaving grad school, I felt unsure of what I was capable of doing, and I don't think I'm the only one. Or there was a
Yeah.
false entitlement with some people,
Oh,
maybe,
yes, for sure. For
and
sure.
then
I didn't have that so much
reality
as I
hit.
think, huh?
And then reality hit. It's like, oh,
Oh,
this
yeah.
industry
It hit some people hard, yeah.
yeah.
I never had that, that entitlement kind of thing, but I think I had an over intelligence about the art that was probably not as beneficial walking into rooms, you know, that I didn't necessarily need.
Because you know what happens when you leave grad school with all that,
Mhm.
fancy Chekhov stuff and all this. It's like, we're going to talk about all nothing but highbrow stuff. You start stepping into audition rooms, and your first jobs you're going to be getting are like, oh, hey, I'm the one line guy, and I'm going to be like, ma'am, can I move this over here? And it's for
Yeah.
like Kimmy Schmidt or something
Yeah.
stupid. I remember I was a bodega guy in Louis
Oh,
saying that he needed to take a dump, and he couldn't poop in my bodega, and I told him no poo poo, and I ended up calling one of his daughters a little white bitch. Like, that's highbrow art, isn't it? It's
right.
all of this I studied. I mean, I pushed ladders in Shakespeare, but it's I had a whack experience with Shakespeare in grad school, but
I know.
this is what we go out there, and this is the reality is thinking that we're going to be doing high art, and no,
Yeah.
no, unless you're lucky. But I don't think any of us have been that lucky.
Yeah. No. And yeah. And thus is life in some ways too.
Yep.
Again, I think it's these things that pull us off these paths that we think we're supposed to be on that really are the juice of what we're meant to experience here,
Yeah.
whatever this place is.
Yeah. Whatever this place is, and this is, I think, where we get into the what you're doing now. Where how did you death doula? I've heard of a doula
Mhm.
because I've had two kids, but where did this journey begin, or how did you get drawn into this, or what was the experience? Was it from the fire? Was it from people you met? I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
curious. This is just a very fascinating thing for me.
I think there were a lot of things. I think it was my upbringing and my family. I'm one of 12, 4 adults and 8 children, broken and blended family
Yeah.
therapist.
Uh,
I think it's from things like the fire. I think it's from having to or getting the experience of holding some really expansive events in my life that really stretched me to be an incredibly open, curious, sensitive with others kind of human being. I think the dominoes just kind of fell this way. But where I think it really began was my grandmother. She died in the fall of 2019. She got hit by a car. She was out grabbing Christmas presents, happy, healthy here. And then, boom, 2 hours later, just like gone, and my grandma was like the grandma of movies.
yes,
There's no beating my grandma in terms of like delicious, southern, beautiful, old, caring women.
I
But
remember you talking about her in
so
grad school.
yeah. I
Yeah.
wrote the play about her. Yeah.
Yes.
She's like my light idol. She is everything. But so when she died, in such a violent way, there was this strange kind of juxtaposition of experiencing that with my family because there was an understanding that she probably would have wanted to go that way. Like from her perspective, nobody had to take care of her. She was, gone pretty much instantly. And, she was the kind of person that in juxtaposition to my grandfather who had died over 10 years of Parkinson's, like
Mm,
my grandma was there with him every day till the day he died. Like it was just a weird, strange, beautiful wrap up that kind of was very unexpected and a huge gift to receive in my first major death. And the work really came in with just being there for my mother. The work of a doula is non-medical comfort and support. I'm
yeah.
there to kind of just have these, we call it soft front, strong back, absorb everything that's going on and still be able to stand there strong. So with my mother, who is a tough cookie, it
Yeah.
looked
Yeah.
like, when she needed to cry, she would just have to leave. She would be in the middle of dinner and just escape, and go somewhere that she could do that privately. So, okay, pick up dinner, da 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 da. Or I know she's dealing with this lawyer who was supposed to sign this thing 2 weeks ago and hasn't done it. So now I'm on the phone with him, barking my New York self. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just became like, what does this woman need to have the space for her own grief, and to
Yeah.
do what she needs to do. So that was the first time I walked into the doula role. And then we had this global pandemic. All of a sudden, acting stops. All of a sudden, service and hospitality stops. Like my whole existence had to take a left-hand turn. And I did a lot of praying and thinking and wishing for significance. And by around my birthday, 2020, June, this random girl showed me a random video of a death doula named Elua Arthur, who is brilliant. She is smart. She is funny. She is beautiful. She is leading kind of the death movement. And she just talks about being a death doula in the video. And after the video, I just told this girl, I said, something has called me to do that work for a very, very long time. And it wasn't until like after I'd paid the money and signed up for the classes and done the research and told everybody, I'm kind of interested in this death doula thing that I realized like, no, never have I been called to do that work, but there is something so aligned with this work and me and all my experiences, my family, grad
Yeah.
school, fire, devastation, all of this stuff is so aligned. And I've never had a calling. I've never had love at first sight. But once that clicked, it's just stuck. It's what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So is it like an organization, or is like, because you don't have to be licensed, or do you?
No, so that's the
It,
thing about death care is go ahead. You had another question?
no, go ahead. I think you're going to answer what I'm thinking.
So that's the thing about death care is or this particular death care, it's comfort and support. It's
Yeah.
something that you already know how to do, and there is no like licensing right now. I am certified, I've gone under a course, but that's only saying what that is. And right now, luckily, there isn't a lot of legislature. Well, in my opinion, luckily, there isn't a lot of legislature and red tape and certifications and licenses to do what I do, because that gets messy and it gets I just ideally would hope that this work would attract the right people and comfort and support would be respected. But even
Yeah.
as doulas, the movement is so fresh that we are deciding as a nation right now, how do we want to represent ourselves regionally? Like, do we want to be like a corporate office? Do we want literally these are things they're asking, do we want like corporate office 9 to 5 work people? Do we want elders? Like, do we want
Yeah.
6 leads around the regions that come to for advice? Do we want, like structure, license, all that? It's just all these things are being figured out right now.
Yeah.
Even the fact of calling ourselves doulas, which have some um slavery connotations to the name. Doula is kind of from an ancient Greek slave or servant, but even representing ourselves like that, we are just such a new movement, and all these people kind of found each other. I think because of the pandemic, that we're still figuring it out. What
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
we, and how do we represent ourselves, and what
Yeah.
do we want to do?
Absolutely. Because I think one of my questions was, in find out if someone hears what a death doula is, or they hear just, oh, I'm a death doula. I
Mhm.
think one of the first reactions or thoughts they have is like, is it like Jack Kevorkian, where
Yeah,
it's assisted suicides,
yeah.
and I mean, obviously he had access to drugs and stuff to aid in the person's deaths, but this is just comforting not just the person that is dying, but the family as well, and
Yes.
getting them ready and prep, because you always ask, I mean, uh, as we get older, we have family, and you have grandparents, and our parents are asked often, are you ready for that moment that so and so passes, or when you know grandma is going to pass soon, are you ready for that moment? And some people would like to say yes, but then time comes, and it's just a crazy thing, because I remember when Rose's father passed away, it was an experience that
Mhm.
um Rosa was kind of left to deal with everything almost by herself, because her mom started developing some Alzheimer's, the
Yeah.
early signs of Alzheimer's. And I think what the doctors are saying, and what we also agree with, is that at the passing of my father-in-law was the traumatic experience that kind of triggered the snowball for the Alzheimer's. And so dealing with the passing, just the two of them by themselves, and that was me. It was like it was a crazy time, because we somehow ended up in Ohio. Long story. We were in Ohio for a couple of weeks because they had bought a trailer or something over there. Long story, but it was just me and the two women and dealing with them, and it was something I could see how an outside party could have helped, and almost
Mhm.
in mediating or comforting, counseling, just a little bit of everything.
Yeah, groceries,
Yeah.
organization, art,
Yeah.
expression, massage,
Yeah.
it's tons of things that the doula can do.
Yeah. Because there's a lot that people don't understand when people die. I hadn't experienced it, but there's so many things that when people die, well, so I don't think Rosa will mind. I mean, this is not really personal information, but in August, actually it was July of, I think, 2015. No, yeah, 2015. Um, who went to Ohio to visit her parents, because they had got a trailer up there, because they said they wanted to be closer. And this is one of the most fascinating things about her father's passing is that they lived in South Texas, where we're from, in the valley, and they bought a trailer in Ohio to be closer to us. That's
Yeah.
an 8-hour drive away from us. But that last moment, that last week that we were there, we visited in like that July. Um, her father was almost, it was where he grew up, in Akron,
Mm.
and where Rosa was born. And he was just reliving memories where he's like, look, I taught here, and he was a master electrician, and I helped wire all these things here, and I would eat burgers here with my friends, so I got in a fight over here. And I remember we would, he was a Hell's Angel, biker dude.
Yeah, that.
And yeah, I thought he was full of shit. I'm not gonna lie, that he was Hell's Angel. I knew he had motorcycles, but when he
Yeah.
did pass, we found his vest with the Hell's
Oh,
Angel patch.
really?
Yeah, yeah, it
Wow.
was legit. And he was like taking me through this past. And a week later, I'll always remember studying for my very first big series reg audition. It was a Saturday night, and Rose had fallen asleep on the couch, and I was studying. And I told her, "Hey, let's just go to sleep. It's 11. You got to get some rest." And sure enough, we go to bed, and about 15-20 minutes later, we get the call.
Yeah.
He passes. He passed on August 10th, and Rose's birthday was August 11th.
Mm.
So I'll always remember that. And one of the things that, like I said, will always stay with me is that I think him moving up there was him knowing that at any point this was going to be it. And him reliving that was him saying goodbye to what was the happiest moments, where his daughter was born, where he lived his life, where he learned how to be an electrician, and all these moments with him and his brother. And um it was a very fascinating moment. And I could see where a person could help guide the two women and the new husband just figure this
Yeah.
out you know
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with me. That's part of why I love this work is people share their stories.
yeah,
And I want to acknowledge like what a huge gift that man gave back to y'all
yeah,
to witness someone confronting their own mortality and then doing something about it
yeah,
to experience peace and comfort at the end so that
yeah,
y'all could witness that. A lot of people don't get that gift. A lot of the death we witness, whether in media, film, or hospital, is like
yeah,
really kind of tragic, but that's a beautiful passing story. Thank you for sharing.
yeah. We just knew that, I mean, just looking back on it, we knew that I think he had a feeling that something was going to happen, and he had internal bleeding, like a stent, an
Yeah.
aneurysm, broke the stent or something like that. And he had internal bleeding. That was just, we didn't know that that was going to happen, but something must have told him like this is where it's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
It's
in some
fascinating.
ways, I think we have a lot of knowledge in there. If we just
Yeah,
listen to ourselves sometimes. Sometimes, I don't know. Death is unpredictable. That's one of the rules. But
yeah. So what do you go through in a course or training? I mean, are if yeah, so how do you get involved, or how does someone contact you, or what is the whole procedure?
it's really just putting yourself out there. It's not hard for me to say I'm associated with death for people to connect that. It's not many people out there like
Yeah,
really registering that. So, and usually the people that are contacting me aren't the people that are actively dying or even supportive of that active dying process. It's like friends of friends that say, "Oh, I know Nic and Death, and this person is dying, so I'll connect them this way." So
yeah,
really, it's just talking about it, and that's what I do all the time at the bars and with young healthy people and with anybody, because it just spreading that word is all that I really need to do. Just let the beacon out, let
yeah.
people know I'm here. Yeah. Hmm.
And do you feel like there's like a pushback from religious folks, or that you might be stepping on say a priest's toes,
Yeah.
or a minister's toes, or you're just offering it's a different set of services? From what I'm understanding, it's just it's an all-encompassing, like, listen, I know death is hard. I'm here to help with the whole gamut of issues that
Yeah.
people don't realize pop up.
Yes. And yeah, especially with things like, if it's religious, like while I might not be able to help you with the religious event or practice, maybe I can research and find somebody who can,
Yeah.
and even the topic of religion is actually a really, really big one, because a lot of people switch it up at the end. Death and grief really throws people for a loop. So you'll have people that have never believed their entire life that are then praying to God, and begging to fix things before they go. Or you have
Yeah.
people that have believed their whole life and then get to the end where it's really in front of their face and they think, actually, you know what? I don't think any of this is real. It just happens. It's
Yeah.
just such again, a space of unknown that you've got to be willing and able to walk into, that I don't know. Who knows what it's going to be one day from the next, really. But
Yeah.
particularly like religion and stuff like that. Yeah, people switch.
Yeah. Have you ever had to work side by side with like a minister or um any kind of
No, not yet. More social workers and stuff like that.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Tax people. Yeah, I haven't really been too close to the act of dying so much as people that are a little younger and healthier that are like thinking about things beforehand. Mhm.
Yeah. So you would help with also getting the bills canceled or death
Yeah, like,
certificate.
I mean, well, just even reminding people to write down their passwords and email accounts and subscriptions and all that stuff to be canceled. Like, that's a huge gift to give someone for your passing, just to have that all in line and in order. Or even
Because
to like, I helped our little old lady friend Linda, talking about
yeah.
setting up insurance and trusts and what does this mean financially and how do we avoid probate court, and all this other stuff. It's just all of it's kind of covered.
So with that being said about that, to go back to my father-in-law's passing, during that last visit that we had where he was showing us everything, I think we knew at some point his days were numbered. He had, he was just getting sick. We just didn't realize it was going to happen a week after we visited him. And I had to sit down with him where he said, listen, when I pass, these are the only four. I think I even have the notes here. I can try to find it. He's like, these are the four things you need to call, and everything will be taken care of, and everyone, you don't have to worry about a thing. I'm trying to find it right here. Um, because it was just a sit down. He said you got to call Social Security, the I think the pension. I think there was kind of a. I gotta find it. This is amazing. Sorry about that. We have a little like awkward silence here, but
This is Rosa's father.
yeah,
Again,
yeah.
what in the world, how did he have so much insight? It's rare to meet somebody who thinks ahead like that.
Oh, I found it right here. Yeah, he said call the Social Security. Well, I don't know why he had the answer. So he had a disease called scleroderma, which at the time there wasn't a lot of resources, and it is a very very rare disease. And so like you see the five you have 10 fingers, like these fingers, like the pointer in the middle and the thumbs started receding inward. So it was
Okay.
almost like he had just this, and it thinned the skin out. And apparently Bob Saget's sister had scleroderma. He had set up uh, a fund for that and a lot more research. So a lot more is known about scleroderma now, but that we thought that was gonna take him down because he was just getting sicker. Like he was weak. Uh, just kind of just his body was eating itself almost. But it ended up being one of the stents from an aneurysm he had in his heart. It broke and
Yeah.
he bled out. And we just knew at some point, we didn't, like I said, we didn't realize it was going to be as soon as it was. But Rosa had this feeling as his health is not getting any better. He's having trouble walking and just stuff like that. And we just had the conversation because we were going to see him then, and then go back to New York, live life, and then whatever happens the next year or two, then he would let us know, and it'll be one of those deaths to where he'd be in a hospital. We could prepare for that, right?
Yeah.
what happened a week later, exactly a week later. And we had the sit down talk, and Rosa had me talk to him, and it was like, get the social security, the pension, the life insurance, and the will is in the desk. Everything is in his desk. He had it all planned out. If only it was that easy.
Yeah.
Because then you find out about different mortgage and a car, like where's the paperwork for this, is there something going on with the house? And then we had to sell the trailer that was in Ohio and dealing with those people. Luckily we found people that did help us, but Rosa really busted her tail getting everything in order for her mom, because her mom also didn't speak English.
Oh
It's
yeah.
all Spanish. She's from Mexico. And
Yeah.
so she had to do and take care of that. And then at that point, her mom's, memory started going. So that's when she started repeating herself. So, man, Rosa deserved a medal. But if only it was as easy as calling those four things and getting that
Right.
taken care of, it would have been easier. But there was a lot of stuff, and people don't realize that. And I think that was a wake up call for us. And I'm not sure if you deal with that a lot, where people don't realize what happens after someone dies. It's like there's a lot of paperwork involved.
Yeah.
It
Well, it
just doesn't
surprised me
like you get
too.
a death certificate and then, oh yeah, you're done.
Yeah, yeah,
Ta-da.
yeah. I know. All done,
No,
all sealed up. I know. That
yeah.
was the surprise of my grandma's death, It was just like, wait, what in the world is all this stuff that my mother has to deal with when she should just be able to cry? You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
it was my first exposure. And it's amazing that we never talk about that.
Yeah. No one ever talks about that. It's one of those life skills that I think, because it's I don't know, would you call it taboo, just talking about death in general, that just people don't want to talk about it, but you're gonna have to at some point, because it's there's only what was it, two things in life are guaranteed. It was like death and taxes,
Yeah.
and
And
you're gonna have to pay both,
yeah, well, not everybody
even when
pays
you
the
die.
taxes,
Well, I mean,
we've
you
learned.
don't, they're there though. uh,
Yeah. But
yeah,
everybody will die.
we will die, and people just don't talk about what that chain reaction is afterward. And then you're supposed to try to mourn and then try to plan a funeral.
Yeah. Quickly too.
That's nuts.
Hmm.
Nuts. I never just, it was such an eye-opening thing
Hmm.
for me and for Rosa. And then I got after my parents, getting everything in line with that
Yeah.
as well. Like,
And well, you got to remember too that you don't necessarily get till old age. You need to get your stuff in order too. I need to too. Right now.
yeah,
But mhm,
you can walk outside and get hit by a car, or
for sure.
something can happen in a train, or um man, just slipping and hitting your head. It's just anything. It's so nuts. And
Hmm.
did death scare you growing up, or was it something you ever thought about before your grandmother passed that made you think about this? Was this something you were interested in, or what happened after?
I think it was, well, I've always been curious about the unknown, what's not being said and flipping over
Yeah,
that unturned stone. But growing up in my family, I kind of mentioned there was just a lot of chaos, a lot of secrets and a lot of, it's just a lot. But
yeah,
as the family therapist, I think I kind of heard a lot of angles and perspectives. And even as a kid, I just remember my fear was that I might be the one to outlive all 11 of these other people. And I might have to go to 11 funerals or witness 11 deathbeds where finally secrets come out or people finally understand and realize like we
yeah,
should have loved each other a long time ago.
yeah,
That was always intrinsic in my little body. That was just something I was born with. So I do think that's why I say I think everything kind of lended to this work because I don't know too many 8-year-olds that are thinking about that stuff. But yeah, the
yeah,
concern for witnessing bad deathbeds has always been a part of my life.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, you don't have to tell me this if you don't want to, but when your grandmother passed, was there any kind of infighting uh between the family members, or was it handled
Um,
pretty well by mostly everybody? Because I know it's a big family, because my dad
yeah,
is one of 16.
yeah,
And there was, obviously when you have 16, there's a big age divide, and it seemed like
yeah,
the older siblings were kind of on one team and the younger siblings were on another. And obviously, different personalities
yeah,
kind
yeah.
can
Um,
collide.
Yes, for sure. And different personalities can show up out of the blue too. That's another thing with death. You'll have maybe the long lost son that nobody ever talked about. Like that can come up to death or
Yeah.
through death. But luckily, with my personal experience, my grandma's family is relatively small. It's just her, my grandpa, and it was her two children. So between my mother and uncle, there was some, just some logistical tensions. But luckily, no, nobody was rough with that one. We all
Yeah.
lost a big one with that one. I think we were all hurting with that one.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's one of the things that I think with Rosa, since she is the only child, she didn't have to deal with any of that kind of, you don't, like you said, you don't know who's going to show up that day
Yeah.
of the funeral. I mean, it could be a great funeral, but then it could be a lot of pent up anger toward a sibling or a parent.
Hmm.
And we didn't have that, luckily, with Rosa. Although they're almost this is a funny, it's not funny, but during her dad's funeral, we almost witnessed another death because her dad was buried at a veterans cemetery, and so they
Yeah.
did a 21 gun salute, and apparently there's only 20 shots,
Okay.
and one of the guys was checking his gun, and he was looking down the barrel, and he luckily moved his head out of the way to like clean some sweat or whatever it was, and the gun went off, just barely
What?
blowing out his head. Yeah,
That would have been too much.
that would have been
That would have been
nuts.
too much.
We remember that was one thing, was we saw the guy and he was like scared, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what a blessing to be here. Good grief.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow. Yeah. So then do you have you said everything is connected through like clientele or just through friends? It's not like it's not like business, right? It just, or you get paid?
Yeah, for me, I'm lucky that I'm in another job that supports me financially. Like I'm able to work with the doula stuff in abundance. So yes, I would love to get paid if well, no, I would love to do this work for free.
Yeah.
I deserve to get paid. I do believe people deserve to get paid for this. And a lot of people have a lot of questioning on payment.
Yeah.
And so I guess like the only thing I kind of want to throw in there is that like it's really important, I think, for people to operate from a perspective that to die a good death, one that feels complete and fulfilled, that takes a lot of resources, energy, time, and privilege, and financials, to have everything in order. So for me, it's very important that pricing wise, people know that if you're paying me, I'm asking you to support not only yourself, but somebody else who might not be able to afford the work so that I can do this for free. I think it's
Yeah.
important that this work is done for free, and especially for people who can't afford it. So like that all, is kind of wrapped up into the pricing thing. But right now, like what I want to do for free, like I'm working in Hell's Kitchen running this bar, and I'm trying to get to those navigating the conversations of gay men in those bars who are 1 to 2 degrees separation from old gay men that are dying in that neighborhood, who probably survived the AIDS epidemic, who have now
Yeah.
survived a global pandemic,
Yeah.
who are probably just alone and need somebody by their bedside. Like that is kind of where I want to be right now in my life, and that I would do for free for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. That's really great. Because I think a big, I mean, you're from the South, so you know how the South is.
Mhm.
An argument people would have from the South, being the Bible Belt where you're from in Georgia, is that, well, what are you doing? Is this one of those quacky things? And
Yeah,
you're just being a little, was it a foo sort of, uh, I don't know what they, you know how they are.
yeah,
And when you're asking for payment, I think people um would give you a little bit of pushback, but I see that, and listening to what you're doing is, it's almost like you it sounds awful. I don't know if it sounds awful, but it's, you plan weddings, you plan birthday parties, you even plan births. But when someone passes, you're helping alleviate a lot of that stress. of the not the financials, but just guiding them. At least if you can't handle like the financial stuff, like getting their making sure they get their pension, making sure they get the life insurance, making sure the loved ones know where to go or who to call in order for them to have that financial security that they were supposed to get, you're still presenting ease so they can mourn
Yes.
and being
Yes.
that shoulder to cry on as well, and just making sure that they can I think what my mom calls it the celebration of life. When they have, instead of a funeral, like when my grandmother passed, they called it a celebration of life. Whenever it's instead of mourning, it's remembering all the beautiful moments that they had while they were alive and being able to say goodbye instead of dealing with funerals.
Yeah.
Plot what is it, cemetery plots, um headstones, stuff like that. And it's,
Yeah.
why do you want to think about any of that stuff? Why you don't want to think about anything when a loved one passes,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
that's what I'm saying. It's not like I'm reading a book. This pilot that I'm in is about a wedding planner, and I'm thinking about it. But what I'm hearing is just you're making the mourning process breathable for
Yeah.
the family that
For a
are
theater
left.
term, I stage manage the death.
You're
You know what I
yes.
mean?
I just had a stage manage. Yes, you stage manage.
Mhm. Let's get that timing. Let's think about this. Let's ask this question. Let's defend this. Let's not this. Let's sit back
Yes.
here. Let's move. Let's go. Let's stay calm. Let's breathe. Let's cook. Let's whatever. You know what I mean? That stage manager who catches everything.
Why
That's what I'm
hasn't
trying
this come around sooner? Because you would think that this would be, uh, knowing capitalist America, that this would have been something someone would have capitalized on.
Yeah, and I think again, I think that's where the danger lies. I think because as Americans, we have a history of violence with death. Our origins are violent, and the deaths that we cause to Black people and slavery and this. I think Americans have created bad deaths for generations, and so I think we have been conditioned not to talk about it or to fear it or to use it in media as a antagonist. It's just we've lost touch somewhere. We really lost touch with how death is part of the cycle of life that brings in new life. And I think that's why it's just because nobody it's my issue with Americans and death talk is not one of reaction or anything like that. It's of avoidance. It's
Yeah.
Americans are super, super avoidant of death. And I think that is just a hard one to wrestle.
It's almost similar to men not being able to express their feelings because it's not
Hmm.
manly,
Hmm.
which we see now kind of breaking down a little bit more. Men are able to speak more of their feelings, but it's the same thing with death, where if it's dead, then it's kind of, I can't remember what movie it was where they're talking about someone that died. It's like, what? I can't say that a dead man is dead.
Yeah.
It's you. It is, like I said, it's almost taboo to even think that there's someone, because without ill intention, it's like you think about someone coming in and talking to a family and guiding them toward getting the funeral stuff and all that, that there's an ulterior motive. There's someone kind of in there for the money. That's gonna, you see ID channel all the time where there's these scammers that prey on little old ladies and that they're
Yeah.
hovering around. Have you had anybody say that to you, that think that, oh, is that what you're doing, you're scamming old ladies? Or
Um, yeah, people get like some people have been a little resistant, or never with me, but there is the idea that people present that you're making money off of death, and that's wrong. That you shouldn't do that. That's like taking advantage of people. But again, there's no systems or structure of support to support people anyway. So if I've got to create all of that and take the time to do it, like deserve the pay for sure.
I agree. I agree 100%. It's a very, just knowing what we went through with my father-in-law, it would have been great to have someone help us,
Mhm.
guide us at least. I mean, Rosa was a kid. She was like 20,
Mhm.
21, I think. 20, 21, dealing with all that. No, she was like 22. I don't remember. She was young. Dealing with something like a kid shouldn't have to deal with.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time.
Hmm.
Or what if it's just a single mom or a single dad with 4 kids, or it just, God bless you. That's really good stuff.
Well, thank you.
And I appreciate that. And what would you like to do or to see in the next 5 years with this work?
I love, when people ask about the future of this work, I'd love to see it disappear. I'd love to not have a job. That's like one of my favorite answers is I'd love
Yeah.
to have death care be so practiced and comfortable in people's homes that you wouldn't need a death doula, because we got back to that place where we've been before, where we take care of our dying and we see it and understand how to be there for people that are dying.
Do you think we just kind of like set it and forget it with people that die? It's like we don't want to think about it. I mean, I think we just talked about that, but I think with death, we just do the least amount possible.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that, whether it's avoidance or fear, or if we're talking about capitalism, dead bodies don't make money. So I think there's a lot of reasons why people, I don't know, misinterpret it or misembrace it. I don't know how to, yeah, but
Yeah.
they do. There's a lot
Yeah.
of unknown, and I think that again comes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, like a lot of the ways that people react to the unknown are out of fear or to call it stupid or to avoid it, versus like you've got to be able to just step into this fearful thing. If more people could just embrace and accept death, it would just unlock so much little deaths that you have in your life. You know what I mean? Little things that you're overcoming that, I don't know, are just small hurdles compared to the big one.
As an artist, how would you approach your work now, having done this work?
As a theater artist or
Yeah.
visual? As a theater
Either,
artist,
either, either.
well, the visual I love. The visual is a little bit more accessible to people who can't quite communicate what's going on with them. Getting somebody to take some paint and listen to some music and put it on a canvas, what they're feeling, and creating something like a physical manifestation of their grief outside of themselves is like a really enjoyable, juicy, therapeutic process for people. But then in terms of the theater, the acting, I think it goes into like death, and the process of death really illuminates how the ordinary is extraordinary.
Mhm.
The smallest hand touch, the slightest breath and movement and care and witnessing, energy exchange. That is what I think I would take back into the theatrical room, really understanding, how precious life and this particular moment is.
Would you write again, or are you
Maybe.
writing currently?
No, not writing currently. No, more doing visual arts. That is better, I think, for my personal expression and getting out what I need to. But yeah, however I need to express, I'll express it if it's writing or
Yeah.
painting, whatever. Mhm.
What is since leaving grad school or even through grad school, what is something you kind of, do you have a dream role, or if you could act again, be in a project, what kind of project would it be? Because it kind of, I think setting up the whole like, oh, what is your dream role is kind of corny to me, because sometimes it's not the dream role. It could be just being part of a certain story that is told. Does that make sense? Like I wish I could have been involved with Friday Night Lights,
Yes.
or something like that, where it was just a good story being told about Texas and football. It was a story about football, but it wasn't truly about just football. It was about relationships and friendships and figuring out life outside of high school.
Yeah.
And I would love to have been part of something like that, or even um I don't know. I liked Harry Potter and that whole world.
Yeah.
It's just like that whole magical world. Um, is just something like that that you would have loved to have been in?
There is a particular piece of art that I always say I'm super upset that I was not a part of creating, and it is called Too Many Cooks. Do you know what that is?
Mm-mm.
It's called Too Many Cooks, and it appeared on Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, like that late night stuff.
Yeah.
And what was supposed to, like, what was listed on the TV guide or like the official channels was that there was going to be this show at like 3:30 a.m. and it was not Too Many Cooks, it was some typical show. So Adult Swim did some guerrilla production or whatever, but at 3:30, instead of the show that maybe probably the high, drunk, whatever audience that is usually attracted to Adult Swim, they premiered this piece called Too Many Cooks. And
Yeah.
it is like 11 plus minutes of absurd, wild, layered, deep, challenging, violent, humorous, like art. It's just a chunk of art that is, if you get the chance to watch it, it's just too many cooks. It's just a world that unravels and unravels and unravels and unravels and unravels and unravels and unravels. And like by the 11th minute, I could not believe that I had watched something that my world had shifted so many times, and the ride was such a thrill. That's something I wish I could experience again for the first time.
Yeah, Adult Swim is weird after midnight.
Yes, but I love that stuff.
Weird. Yeah, no, it's fascinating that they get greenlit. Like these, there's just so many different. It could be cartoons, it could be live action. A lot of it's not even cartoons. I remember I auditioned for a show called Hunky Boys Go Ding Dong, and just the title itself was weird. The audition was weird, and it would have been so fascinating to see it play out.
Yeah, to see where that landed.
Yeah, I don't even know how they find these shows.
Yeah,
but you're right. It's like 11 minutes. Yeah. Because who else where else would you see that? YouTube?
Exactly. And I think we need more of that experimental, challenging art.
Yeah. What about mainstream commercial stuff? Is there anything like a guilty pleasure?
Oh, I heard that Fleabag is coming back for another season, and that is did you see Fleabag at all?
I have not.
Fleabag is unbelievable. Excuse me. That is like an acting tour de force. That woman is unreal.
Yeah.
I think it's Hulu or Netflix, something like that.
Or is it Amazon?
Oh, yes, maybe it is.
I think it's Amazon. Yeah. Wasn't it Phoebe Waller? Is it Phoebe Waller Bridge?
I think something like that.
Yeah. No, I need to check that out. There's so much TV out there right now that it's so hard to keep up, and it's so great. I think the best way I can explain TV now is you've got, if you can kind of put it like side by side with theater, Broadway would be like the ABC, CBS, NBC, the big networks, the FX, and then you have the off Broadway shows, which are not as big, maybe the offshoot networks like FX, or I don't know, is TBS even still a thing? But Hulu, Netflix, but the Hulu, Netflix shows that are on the suggested, when you turn it on, those are like your off Broadway, and then you have the off Broadway, which are on Amazon's, or the random shows that end up showing up as the trending, and you never heard of them. There was no advertisement in those. Those are those. I think I was in what would be comparable to an off Broadway show on Netflix called The Characters, and it was awful. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. It's just they gave, I think it was 6 episodes, and in each episode they gave a comedian money to write, direct, and produce their own episode.
Okay.
And mine was with Lauren Lapkus, which was weird in and of itself. I get smacked by Bobby Moynihan with a bunch of money. He's robbing I don't know, I think he robbed a bank or something. I don't know what it was. And then there's just other I think Henry what's his name from the last podcast on the left had one. He had an episode too. So yeah, and he even makes fun of it too. He's like, yeah, there was no love for that show. It was awful.
Yeah.
You probably never seen it. Yeah. So,
well, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah, no, it is what it is. It's the art that we create, right? That's what we do. I mean, we did a lot of good stuff in grad school and some really bad stuff.
Yes, absolutely. But you were my herald in my thesis.
I was. Yeah, that was fun.
Pivotal.
Yeah, no, that was fun. Would you like to do that ever?
Oh yeah, I would definitely do that show. Orphans by Lyle Kessler, for sure. For sure.
My story with Lyle Kessler.
Oh yeah, you got an autograph or something? Or
No, I was at a party, and Rose and I didn't know anybody at this party, and we're sitting next to this little old guy, and the whole, like, maybe for about half an hour or so, we didn't say a word to him. Like, literally, say Roses was sitting here, the little old guy was right over here, just sitting there quiet. Gets up, we find out that that's Lyle Kessler.
yeah. Oh, I
We're like,
love
oh
that.
my goodness, only in New York would that happen.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. Well, this is great. Have you kept up with a lot of people from grad school?
Not too many. I keep up with. I'm going to be in Brennan's wedding this next month,
Amazing.
actually. Yeah, so I keep up with a few people, but not too many. Always my little lone wolf self out there.
No, that's good. That's good. I'm the same way.
Yeah,
I guess we could talk about that off there. Yeah, no, it's
absolutely.
nothing bad. But yeah, so this has been great so far. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, it's been great catching up with you. Great seeing your journey. Great seeing you come out from the shadows because you disappeared for a bit.
Yeah, I had a lot of spiritual work to do. A lot.
Yeah. What was up
Mhm.
with that bear?
The bear. People still bring up the bear. The
Yeah.
bear. The bear. I had done these self-help workshops. These kind of dive into yourself, and they were really extreme. I loved them. They were really transformative. But I did 2 levels of them, and they really were pushing for this like third level where you have to do this 3-month commitment thing. This is just Reader's Digest. And either
Yeah.
way, I didn't want to do it. I was like, this is too intense. I can't. So they said, well, list your 3 commitments for the next 3 months. And I mean, out my mouth, again, one of those moments that it's like, I'm not speaking, something deep inside me is speaking. Was I said, I want to gain 10 pounds regardless of what it looks like. I want to, I think I said, yeah, 10 pounds. I want to make a short film, 10 minutes or less. And I want to build a bear out of flowers. And I don't know why that came out of my mouth, but it just did. So for that next 3 months, I just built what I felt like I had used my word to commit to. And that is what came out. I don't know. I'm working on something big right now too called childhood violence. We'll see what happens. But I don't know. My art is always
So for
it's something.
yeah, no, no, no. It's for everyone wondering what the bear was. This big paper mache
Oh yes.
bear, like a literal bear.
Mhm.
And it looked really cool. I don't even know how, like, if I were to do something like that, I remember the closest thing I could ever get to anything looking good on paper mache was in like first grade. We had to do the globe. So we had a balloon and just covered that with the paper.
Oh yeah.
And then we popped the balloon and then we made a globe. That was it. And you made an actual bear and it looked really good.
Yeah, I can stand on it. That's cool. Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you. I
it
appreciate
was
it.
awesome.
It
I
was
remember
a
that.
work of art.
And I also remember you had your before and after pictures. You did put on the 10 pounds, I think, from what I
Hmm.
remember. Did you make the short film?
I did, and I actually made it about building the bear. It like became this interesting like 10-minute piece about a little artist journey and solo, and I just did it on my iPad but I committed and I did the thing. Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And what is this childhood violence thing?
I don't know, something's in me, it's coming up. I have all these arts and crafts and old supplies that I never use. So something, and I really do think kids are going through a hell of a lot with gun violence and pandemics and what the fuck and excuse my language, but
That's fine. You
something
can
is
cuss
just
this.
inviting,
Yeah.
huh?
You can cuss.
Something,
Yeah.
thank you. But something is inviting me to kind of build this. It's almost going to be half sculpture, half painting of just like on this canvas of all these art supplies, like just an explosion of them kind of upwards that, it's just childhood stuff, but maybe moving rather violently. I don't know how to express that or why to express that, but that's just what's coming up lately.
There's a picture I'm going to try to find and send to you. I think you would find it interesting because it has something that kind of correlates with what you're talking about with the childhood violence. If I can remember it correctly, I just have to find it. It has like the kids, and it's, I think McDonald's is one of their killers. Gun violence is another killer. There's like just drugs. There's just it's a really interesting piece. But one of the things that I noticed, and I mean, I'm sure you notice it too, is this kind of with children. And I mean, this might go toe to toe or neck and neck with your work with suicide. And it seems like there's just so many more childhood suicides. And I don't know if there's an over glorification of it in media, especially with like TV shows. And I know that they're trying to raise awareness about mental health. And I feel from what I've seen in TV shows and movies is that that kind of awareness they're trying to raise ends up becoming more of a glorification of the act. I don't know what you think about that, or from your, what you've seen. I just noticed that now it just seems that committing the act seems to be more common than it had been in decades.
Yeah, I think,
And it's
well,
heartbreaking.
it is heartbreaking. But I think that also goes to the fact that I don't think humans have, or especially Americans, I don't think we've taken the pressure off ourselves since we began. It's only been more and more and more and more and more and more and more. And like I don't know, it's not surprising, unfortunately. I think that a child would be exposed to so much through the internet and have access to
Yeah.
knowledge and information and witnessing with their eyes, maybe things that they wouldn't normally be able to see,
Yeah.
that it develops some tough things to deal with. And
Yeah.
I don't know if there's it is tough. It is tough. And we do have people contact a lot, when someone commits suicide, that just creates such a space of questions and
Yeah.
need for comfort for people, that people,
Yeah.
it just really twists people upside down. So that, yeah, you'll have people that call about that. Just usually need to talk.
Yeah, no, I can see that. And the pressure, you are correct. And with the internet itself, it does present something that I didn't have to deal with when I was a kid. I mean, there was bullying, and there was your normal high school experiences, middle school and high school experiences, first girlfriend, first heartbreak. You might have done something embarrassing and someone makes fun of you for the day or whatever. But with the internet, man, the moment you do something embarrassing, you look around and see if someone was recording,
Yeah.
because the first thing someone's going to do is post that up there. Or you get in a fight, they're posting that up on the internet. No
Yes.
one's breaking things up. You do something embarrassing at a party, you get drunk,
Yeah.
it's on the internet.
And
And you it's just, it's forever.
yeah. And I think it creates a tremendous amount of pressure. A minute event can become a gigantic, monumental, viral thing. Yeah, it would help me. If I'm very glad I'm not in high school.
Yeah.
At this point, for sure, it would
I
definitely cause some
There's
stuff.
a documentary I saw before I had a daughter called Audrey and Daisy. I think it's what it's called. And it's about these two girls who had to deal with that, where something got out of the internet personally about them sexually, or something they did, and the devastation it caused not only them but the family because of the act of suicide.
Hmm.
And there was nothing that the family didn't know was going on until it was too late.
Yeah.
And the bullying gets bad, and it's really scary. It's really, really scary what kids are dealing with these days.
Yeah.
And there's just, I don't know, like the internet is great, but it's also very bad.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess, back to the art, I think that's just what I need to honor for whatever reason right now, is that kids are going through it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, I'm really
And
honored.
I'm gonna
Thank
have
you.
you stay on after I stop recording, but I just want to thank you for joining us, Nic. Um, Everybody, thank you for watching and for listening. And can we find you anywhere on social media, or with your the Death
Yes.
Doula or anything?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you can find my social media page. I bid you a doula. It is IBIDUYOUA doula, DOULA. So just like it sounds. But you can find me there, and you can holler any questions with that as well. Mhm.
Amazing. For anybody who has any other questions that I didn't think of, I mean, I get a little scatterbrained
Mm.
and then I'll go off on a tangent. But if you have any other questions or anything, feel free to reach out to Nic. Thank you, Nic. And thank you for everybody who sat through and watched or listened to this, always you can find this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and all your favorite podcasting uh, apps, and or you can watch it on YouTube under my channel, Jorge Chapa. Episodes go out on Mondays, and thank you for listening. Be kind to one another, and I will see you all next time. Bye. Thank you, Nic.
Thank you.